Hi, everybody. It's Sarah Boothby, Soldier in Psychology, and these are Conversations for Restoration. So I am with one of my professors, instructors from St. Stephen's University. This is David Moore. And David, maybe you can tell everybody just a little bit about where you're residing and what you do on the day-to-day when you're not uh, teaching us all from your sources of wisdom.
So, yeah, before I do that, how are you, Tara?
You know what? I'm living the dream, right? Pretty good. But yeah, just in my own life, in my midlife with children and elderly parents and job and finances, living in this North American culture. So that is how I am. Some days are great, some days are harder. And then perimenopause stuff is like, can you counsel me through that one, David?
I have so much experience.
Yeah. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm doing what I can to stay centered with so much transition going on. Um, living in a community here on this California Central Coast where over 620 people have been abducted by the government, ostensibly the government, disrupting people's families and lives and disrupting businesses and disrupting the community. And who knows how this very agricultural region, at least a portion of it, the majority of it, is going to affect the economy of the whole country. That remains to be seen. But
Yeah.
the pain is immediate, not just what is, you know, what is to come, but what is right now.
Yeah. And just to clarify, so you're down in California, right? And
Yeah.
California area. What sort of area, it's city or metropolis?
Well, Santa Barbara, we live in Santa Barbara County, South Santa Barbara County. So the statistic that I gave included all of Santa Barbara County, which is, we're in South County, but there's North County, and then south of us is Ventura County. And so I was speaking of us cumulatively because it seems like a couple of weeks ago we were targeted for these kidnappings.
Yeah, and that's the this is some of the racial tension with I like deportation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, detention and deportation. Yes.
Oh man,
I
yeah.
mean, in some cases, people are disappeared, so we don't know for sure if they've been detained or deported.
Wow. And it's a big deal. And I mean, like we get some of the information up in Canada, and I think that the news seems to acknowledge this in the United States, but it's like to me, it sounds like we're not actually getting the whole big picture of just how damaging this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you pastor there, the beloved community. So you're leading, you're providing counsel and pastoral care. You're coming alongside of your community during this time.
Yeah, and in some ways, I mean, we're actually coming alongside each other. We have some people in our congregation who are Latine, and so they're most directly impacted. But we are inseparable. I mean, it's the government that tries to separate us.
Yeah.
Uh, but we are one human family, um, and we recognize who our foes are. We recognize that the system has morphed into something that opposes not just brown people, but people in general, and that includes our own Santa Barbara County Sheriff Bill Brown, uh, who is actually, I don't know how you get this position, but he is over the the sheriff's organization for the whole country. And he has to play to them, I'm sure. But I'm sure they're probably his own convictions too, or at least he's reflecting uh, the 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 least empathetic portion of his constituency, because he's ignoring the voices. I mean, we had a county supervisors meeting. A lot of us attended a couple of weeks ago, and the sheriff was given a platform. And after he gave his speech, just shortly thereafter, he left. He didn't even listen to the other people, to the advocates, to experts in our community. And so I mean, that's pretty reflective of what we're dealing with when it comes to law enforcement by and large. So it's the people against the powers.
And I love what you said too, David, that we are one human body. And there's also this real pastoral uh energy that I hear you, sort of like we care about the marginalized, and we hear the marginalized, so the listening. And when you say we are one human body, can you make that come more alive? Because I think that's really beautiful and important.
Well, I think, and when I said that, I wasn't referring specifically to our congregation. It includes our congregation,
Yeah.
which, shares in conversation and community for mutual support and care. But we are also connected to people beyond our congregation, standing up against this brutality. Some of the people who live in our community are, not necessarily faith-based, or maybe faith-based in different ways. And, there's no distinction. It's the people against the powers.
Yeah. And the people, that is what I would hear as the one human body. It's the people, and it's not just the people in our house or in our church building or in our school. We are interconnected.
Yeah.
And then you care really like passionately about the voice for the marginalized.
Well, you know, almost 2 years ago now, over a year and a half ago, after Hamas attacked that music festival, and Israel began its ethnic cleansing campaign against Gaza, and also eventually against the West Bank, against Syria, against Lebanon, Iran. Early in this most recent version of Israel's oppression of Palestinian people, back in 2023, late 2023, our county board of supervisors put out a statement in the local press that they were standing in solidarity with Israel. Now, there are reasons for that kind of thing. A lot of them are economic. Um, you, in terms of holding power, being in office, and some of them, I suppose, are authentic. I don't know
Mhm.
if those are deeply held beliefs on the part of these people, but a couple of friends. I mean, I emailed I know some of the supervisors personally. There are five of them. I think three of them I know I actually know all of them personally, but haven't had conversations with all of them. But I've had conversations with three of them. Two of them have spoken at our church in the past, that kind of thing. And so I wrote them, and I said, so you're standing in solidarity with Israel. What does that say to uh, your constituents who happen to be Palestinian, who live right here in this region? What does that say to the Muslims in our community? Not that all Muslims have the same heart for Palestinians, but generally they do, because they are mostly fellow Muslims. They mostly they are Muslims, but there are there are some Christian Palestinians, as you know, but I started spending more time visiting Friday prayers
Mm.
at the mosque in my neighborhood. Um, I already had a good relationship because a couple of years ago, the chairman of the mosque died, and the imam asked me to come to be a speaker at his memorial. Um, so there has been ongoing relationship, but I started spending more time engaging people who are being ignored. I mean, they're it's almost like it's almost like they're not constituents of these elected officials. And, and so we've had to speak up. It's an ongoing challenge, and that's why I said before, in the midst of all this change, I'm just doing all I can to remain centered, to keep my own heart pure.
Yeah, yeah, and uh, yeah, very hard, and it's sort of like this duality, or this, maybe there's a better word, or balance between being informed and being informed well, and then, like you said, keeping my own heart of love's kind. And you are very well informed, so I wonder if you could speak to that as well, because I think that sometimes we don't do a very good job as North Americans of paying attention. But right now it's like, pay attention, people. Like, this is part of being a spiritual wise person, is pay attention.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Stay informed, but also stay centered. I was thinking a few days ago, I was thinking about the words of Jesus when he said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And in my mind, and which is not, I mean, being in your head is not the place to spend much time, but that's where I was at the moment, and I was thinking, okay, so yeah, the truth is supposed to set me free, but I've got so much truth, it doesn't seem like it's setting me free. It seems like it's weighting me down. And then I heard from the Spirit saying, information alone is not necessarily truth. Truth is reviving. Truth is renewing. And so then that's when I had a reset. And it's important to be informed, and know why you're being informed. Not so that you can argue with people on social media or in your community. The reason I try to be informed is because I'm part of this human collective, and I don't want to be ignorant of what they are struggling, what people are fighting, whether they are transgender Black women, or whether they are Salvadoran farm workers, whoever they are in our community. I need to be aware, and because if we're not, if there's a lack of awareness, then there's going to be eventually there's going to be a lack of caring, because when you don't know, you come to your own conclusions, which is pretty unsafe for everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the knowing, and then I love the language of what the Spirit said, like, truth is so much more, really, like the truth. But if we are not informed about people who look different than us, or have different experience than us, or different faith beliefs than us, we run the risk so mightily of believing in us and them.
Yeah.
Like it's easier to them somebody we don't know.
Yeah, it can happen to anybody. I mean, it's possible for that to happen among the people who are marginalized, to come to conclusions about people who are not us, not part of that particular group. It can happen, but it's more, I think, arguably more dangerous when people who are more powerful come to such
Oh
conclusions.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I like the like that knowledge is power, but power is power.
Oof.
Yeah. So if I have power, it is risky to not understand love.
Yeah, it's risky. It jeopardizes the condition of the soul. You know, when I was younger, I would read things, read the words of Jesus, things like, what does it profit a person to gain the world and lose their soul? I used to think of that in terms of the afterlife, but
Mm,
I mean, right before our very eyes, we're watching people who have lost their souls and their bodies are still active.
yeah,
They are soulless.
yeah.
The current U.S. administration is filled with soulless people.
Mhm. It's interesting because I think about this, and I'll be curious how you notice this, but so much of psychoanalysis or good psychology is we want to get people embodied, and so
Mm,
people live in their head. We want them to be embodied, to be like, oh, I know where anger lives in me. I know where anxiety lives. I can feel my feelings in my entire body. And then when we're talking about being included in the human collective, or we are the body,
yeah.
it really, I think on that a lot of like, if I'm not living in my own body, how do I connect with the grander body that we're all included in?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that's important. I think that's much like saying a person is soulless. A disembodied person is a soulless person. They are not connected, and that doesn't mean that they don't pay attention to their body. They may be in excellent physical condition, but spiritually, they have dismissed their bodies for interests for interests that reflect their greed for power, their
Yeah,
lust for power.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because if we're in our soul, like our soul essence teaches us what about who we are. So here's the pastoral word, like what is our soul trying to remind us of?
Hmm. What is our soul trying to remind us of?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe one answer to that would be our soul is trying to remind us of our roots, of our
Mhm.
origins, of where we came from. Um,
Yeah.
that we didn't just appear out of nowhere and are unaccountable. We're all accountable. But
Mm,
but the thing is and one reason that you and I are having this conversation, and the reason that we have uh, communities like faith communities, like churches, the one of the primary purposes is not to hold people accountable to some standard that someone came up with, but to hold us accountable to our own standards, to challenge us to to live up to what we already in our hearts know is true, know is right. Not some banner on the wall saying this is our statement of faith or this is what we all agree to believe. No, no. What do you believe in your heart
yeah.
of hearts? Because what is in your heart of hearts is what is truth. And if you if there's no accountability to yourself, then that's soullessness. That's being disembodied.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's I don't know if you know David Goa, but he's a mentor to some of us Canadians, a wise Orthodox scholar and just a scholar. And David, at one time I heard him say, we are a beautiful body and we have beautiful bodies. And it's like there's these things that in these corporate spaces where we come alongside each other towards better truth. um there's that we the human collective, the beauty of the body, the larger mass of people that we're all included in, but then we're accountable too, like you're talking about. just David is a beautiful body. Just Tara is a beautiful body.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making me think of my friend Jacob Lesnar Buxton, who is part of our church community, and um, he has cerebral palsy, and he's one of the leading disability rights advocates in our city. And Jacob has to come around and remind us every now and then of how beautiful the bodies of people are, people with disabilities, and to remind the churches not to not try to heal everybody. I mean, some churches are more interested in healing, and so they see somebody who can't, if they can't understand the way they talk, or they don't like the way they walk or whatever, they want to, you know, circle them and pray for them and see if they can get them healed. And I mean, it's the same thing with people uh, who are historically, that's been the case of many churches with gay folks and
Mhm.
queer folks, and now transgender folks. If we can heal you, then everything will be all right. It's so suffocating. It's so suffocating for some people to set a standard of what is normal and then project it upon everybody else.
Oh yeah, because we're all weird. Like good luck being normal. I haven't figured that one out.
Right.
I haven't met any normal people. I've met a lot of people. But it is, again, it's this sort of abuse of power to say, like, I know the gold standard that everybody should be living by. And it disorganizes. Requiring sameness disorganizes.
Wow, that's profound. Um,
That's attachment theory. It's like if I expect
mm.
you to think exactly the same as me, this is why our people now, like our friend circle, David, is we think together. I don't have to convert you to the gospel of Tara just as much as you're not trying to convert me to the gospel of David.
No, I think that probably, and this is a reason for your show here,
Mhm.
um, is to affirm people. And when you say that you said a moment ago that we're all weird, and yeah, that might be the word to use, but maybe we're all weird to somebody else. you know in ourselves, we're like, this is cool, I like this. This is what I always wanted to be. But to somebody else, it may be. To an unenlightened person, it's weird. But to enlightened people, it's like, no, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I love you. I've been waiting for you my whole life. Thank you for being in my presence. And I mean, life would be so boring without that kind of diversity.
Yeah, the variety. And I also agree, like because I mean, our weird or atypicalness is a part of us, and it's not a flaw. It's something we integrate. And I think when we're talking about our LGBTQ plus friends, um, there's a beautiful learning coming alongside of a friend who really had no choice but to self-actualize and integrate what they were told was flawed. Um, because all of us are atypical and all of us are unique. And so when I love my weird self, that's not an insult for me. And just like what you're saying, David, you're like, I'm pretty cool.
so so I have a question for you. It's something that I just started processing this morning. I was reading a survey from the U.S. Uh, National Center for Transgender Studies, and uh, 57% of transgender persons report some degree of being rejected by their biological families. On the other hand, 18% of them have been rejected from their churches. I was a bit surprised to find out, honestly, that many churches actually were affirming. I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out, but if 18% of them are rejected by their churches and 57% are rejected by their families, what does that say about families? What does it say about churches? But I mean, why are families less affirming than churches? I was kind of set back by that.
I think, well, and it's you know, like Mother Teresa says, you want to change the world, go home and love your families. So the detriment of a mother's rejection or a father's rejection, I think, like when we have pains in our own families, those are the most uncomfortable, unnatural like relationships to be out of. So I don't like some guy I was friends with 17 years ago. I don't even know his name. But when I have a difficulty liking myself in relationship with somebody who I share blood and DNA with, boy, that's a hard one to reconcile. I think
Mm.
I'm surprised by that church one too, unless maybe the data skewed somehow to not notice people who didn't attend church or people who
This
had,
is I mean, according to the study, it
yeah.
said these are people who participated in faith communities.
Well, if we're doing, I mean, like Lord help us, may that stat be accurate and may we improve on it if it's true.
Yeah.
You know, because it's we're all just people like everybody else.
And it may be part of it may be that the pool is small already. Maybe a lot of people who are transgender weren't participating in the first place, so the numbers s smaller than, the family numbers. I don't know. They didn't
I
give the total numbers, they just gave the percentages.
yeah, I think it's a dangerous stat to believe that that's accurate. I would love it if it's accurate. I mean, my experience is that believing that the church is getting it that right for marginalized transgender people, that that would be, I mean, maybe a follow-up study, right? But we want to care, and I know we have people in our circle that we care about and who are brave and share about their experience of being marginalized in many ways, whether it's um you know their sexual identity or the ways that we look different, gender in the church, and in these spaces where we're just trying to listen to those pain spots that other people are facing or the experience, because the whole church isn't bad.
No. I think probably in some ways it's mm, misinformed
Yeah.
or underinformed. I mean, when you said that, I thought about how silent our local here in this region, uh, how silent churches have been when it comes to ethnic cleansing in Gaza.
Oh yeah.
Um, I it seems what they're trying. I mean, I can't speak for all of them, but I know I can speak for some of them. They're trying to make sure they're friends with the Zionist Jewish community. They
Mhm.
don't want to be perceived as anti-Semitic, and they've been conditioned. Uh, so many churches have been conditioned to think that if you don't endorse Israel, then you are anti-Semitic. And so, people are starving to death. People are being shot down while they're trying to get to food by marksmen. Their hospitals have been bombed and their mosques and their churches exploded. And still people believe that the problem is all Hamas.
Mhm.
And I mean, I can say that that's true of the churches in general. Maybe not every church, because I don't know every one, but the ones that I know about in our community are trying to straddle the fence. They're trying to say, ceasefire, maybe. Um, but at the same time, they're saying, uh, Israel needs to be supported. And honestly, I'm trying to get it. And when I say I'm trying to get it, I'm reflecting upon there were stages in my life where I believed certain things, and then someone came along and tried to correct me, especially in my youth, tried to correct me, and my indoctrination repelled that. Like, you can't be right. And I even had like Bible verses to support my point of view. Um, so I try to look at it with that kind of empathy that people can change, people can come along. Um, but at the same time, we're seeing people die by the thousands, and so that's so challenging to me.
I think so too. And it's, you know, the I think the challenge is like, are we being silent? Are we not talking about this?
Mm,
Because I'm afraid of looking like I don't like one people group. Am I not allowing myself to like the other people group? Like, can we be pro Palestine and pro Israel and pro Ukraine and pro Russia and pro Uganda? Like, can we be
yeah.
pro USA and pro Canada? Can we just love all of the people of our beautiful diverse body? Because we marginalize one, we marginalize the transgender women. And I often feel a great compassion for transgender men because they are so beyond marginalized that they aren't even targeted the same way transgender women are.
Mm,
Not to discredit the intolerable uh error thought against transgender women,
yeah.
but there's it's all ethnic cleansing, whether it's transgender people in our country or if it's what's going on in Gaza. And that should be deeply offensive.
Again, Tara, this goes back to how we have been conditioned. We've been brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
We've been propagandized. You know, when think about it this way, entertainment, movies and television, things like that for generations, uh, has caused it to think a certain way. Uh, and, you know, we don't see it as having an agenda to condition us. We just thought it was, if this thing can be a blockbuster and everybody will go see it and it's entertaining and I laughed and I cried and all of that kind of thing. We haven't, at least historically, critiqued it. So, I was just listening to um, a podcast or something that talked about how that show Will and Grace, do,
Mm-hmm.
Will and Grace was it wasn't the first show to have any gay characters, and of course we know about Ellen before that, and it wasn't the first show to have gay characters, but it was the first show to have gay characters who were living normal lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the gay person, because they had statistics showing that something like 90% of in these movies and shows, the gay person died before the end of the show, or the gay person got sick, or something happened. And they were trying to, in some convoluted way, to elevate queerness without fully affirming and accepting it as normal. And it wasn't until Will and Grace came along that actually provided something like that. But until then, that our conditioning has always been that it's not good to be queer. It's not safe to be queer. It's not normal to be queer. And the same thing applies to how many, I just, I want to gag when I hear that there's another World War II movie coming out.
Yeah.
Um, because listen, I know there was a Holocaust, but this is I mean, there is a Holocaust right now as well. But how many people have seen Palestinian feature films and Palestinian dramas and you know we don't see that, and so it's not in our consciousness, and so our whole worldview has been shaped by this colonizer mentality that, I mean, that condones colonization, which is what Israel has done to, Palestinian people. Um, but then Israel is a colonial project by the UK and the US in the first place.
Hmm.
And so how many films do we see that are going to, fully critique the historical geopolitical practices of the West?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, this is where examples of our friends on the trail, just you sharing when all this terrible stuff is going down, and I go to the mosque and I see how people are praying, and I experience this with another source of culture, like how many of us have been in a mosque. And I'm challenged too, this is part of the this psychological pain for many of the Christians that I see, is it's like, have you talked theology with your Muslim neighbors, your Hindu friends, your like, because that was one of the most beautiful experiences for myself with, moving forward, is these continued conversations with my friends who are of a different faith orientation. Because we are one body.
Yeah,
We're one beautiful body.
yeah.
Yeah. But if we, that if we always do what we've always done, we'll always
Mm.
get what we've always gotten.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what the leaders that be know that.
yeah. Uh, that kind of takes me back to when we first started this conversation today,
Mhm.
and I asked you how you were doing, uh, and you just gave me a litany of different things that were going on. I'm going to tell you honestly, what came to my mind is, oh, okay, so she's experiencing racial capitalism.
Mm, yeah.
It's
Mhm.
not good for anybody. It's not even good for the winners.
No. Mhm. So, and can you, just for people, can you define racial capitalism? Because I think that's an important.
Well, capitalism cannot exist without victimizing people,
Mhm.
including killing them, imprisoning them, underpaying them, or
Yeah.
not paying them at all. Capitalism can't exist without victims. And, uh, the easiest targets historically have been people who are non-white. Um, I saw a
Mhm.
show a few days ago. This is kind of an aside, but and it was a white woman speaking. Ironically, she said, you know, even using the term non-white centers whiteness.
Mhm.
And she said, let's start talking about the global majority. Um, I kind of like that idea, but I even prefer the global majority of humans,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, which gives anybody access to it if they want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Now I lost where I was going. For oh, racial capitalism.
I was following you. I was following. I was going to say it, but I was just enamored with what you're saying because it's helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Victims are required, and the easiest targets are people who look different,
Yeah.
um, which accounts for, in modern times, the African slave trade, the dispossession of indigenous peoples throughout the West, which is a strange term because the West is also Australasia. I mean, uh, you know, that's an odd, way to look at it. But we have language that disinforms us. We use terms that keep us oblivious to really what's going on. Uh, but the targets tend to be people who are different. So uh, black, brown, and other people of color, queer people, people with disabilities, um, anybody who's different in any way, who can't fit, if you will, or doesn't fit or doesn't want to fit, because that's a
Mhm.
big piece too. That's an important part because there are people who don't want to fit. All
Yeah.
right. But then you're at risk. In fact, sometimes if you could fit and you don't want to fit, you are actually in greater danger because you expose, and I'm talking about white folks right now.
Hmm.
White folks can be in greater danger than, people of color or trans or queer or people with disabilities. You white white cis hetero people can be in greater danger because you're seen as traitors.
Hmm.
And when a white person makes a claim about the people who are considered to be other, who ourselves we don't see ourselves as other, but society does. When white people make a claim that flies in the face of this superiority complex that so many that is built into whiteness. Whiteness is not just a problem of superiority; it's lethal. Um,
Yes.
and when a white person confronts that in the presence of other white people, that white person becomes a target more than, say, a person like me. Um, that white person becomes a target because we got to get rid of that person so that we can get on with our program.
I think too, and uh, I think that because of the imbalance, because of the lineage that we belong to of judging people by their marginalized markers, I can discredit David for advocating for LGBTQ plus more easily because it's already in my lineage. Well, of course he
Mm,
said that. I'm not gonna say anything.
right.
Whereas if you know a very loving white guy is advocating for LGBTQ plus, well, we can really hate him.
Yeah.
And it's not the same as racism. It's just people in power, I'm not a powerful person, but people in power have not stepped out from behind that racial capitalism. And so if if people in power do not find the better truth that there is no them, just us. Like if I can believe that we are all us, if people in power can say, yeah, you're right, there's no them, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
transformative.
It feels bizarre. It feels disembodying or threatening to disembody when you look at what is actually going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
The effects of racial capitalism. I mean, I think it was this past weekend that police broke into, without a warrant, into the house of a family of Quakers and arrested, abducted, and they're all white. But that was because of, allegations. And the family posted something about it on social media saying they recognize that their son is probably safer than,
Yeah.
brown people who have been abducted, but it doesn't make it safe. I mean, they're concerned about him, but they have access to legal resources, that kind of thing, that that more marginalized people don't have. But the fact that he's a Quaker, and you know what, this happened in London. 6 young women who attended a meeting on climate change and the war in Gaza in the UK. Can you believe it or not? The UK. I mean, first of all, the UK doesn't have uh, what the US calls the First Amendment. So, when we speak out in the US and then we are silenced or we are shut down, it is a violation of the First Amendment, right? But the UK doesn't have a First Amendment. So where are the boundaries? They've broken in. There was a Quaker meeting, and these young white women were raided and arrested by 20 officers. I yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to be humane, I guess.
It's dangerous to be humane. And I think so I think it's really important that we're having conversations like this and valuing the voices that we're hearing. David's voice is valuable. I think my voice is valuable. I think my good, loving friends who are trying to be humane in our human collective, all of these voices are valuable. And then, it seems to what we're actually talking about is turning a blind eye to political affronting, turning a blind eye to violence of any kind is participation in spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
Like I'm abusive if I don't care. I'm abusive if I turn the channel.
Yeah, and it messes with your own moral alchemy. It can't be good for you, for your soul, for your body, for your being, for your relationships. And the thing for me is, these folks have children.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I probably think about this every day. What do your children think? Uh, to me, the people in history that have the greatest entitlement to pride are people who had parents and other ancestors who were ridiculed and scorned, tortured and killed for saying and doing the right thing. Those folks, when you have parents like that, when you have people like that, I mean, you're entitled to some kind of special pride, I think. And your parents, your ancestors passed that down to you, that pride. And you know what? Everybody's thinking about, I mean, not everybody, but people are thinking about having a will, having a trust, something to give their kids, property, money. That's nothing if you don't give them morality.
Yeah. Yeah. The wisdom imparting. And that's what my one of my mentors, David Tenson, just wrote a book called Decentering Everything. And it's like really about how are we being elders? How are we being wiser others, bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind? How are we being hands holding these relationships? And I was thinking about this a few times, is this the capitalism and the economy of negative beliefs. And I was thinking back to the stat about the damage transgender people can feel at the root of their family, the rejection of their family. And if we tolerate a culture that has this racial capitalism or these false economies, then what kind of economy do we create in our home? Yeah. It's like that what is the relationship, what is the give and take, the exchange that's happening in these homes? And so then we can see why people cut their children off.
Yeah.
or have negative views of their children, see child as a problem. And then that really disrupts our ability to have love and empathy and to be disgusted by what's happening in these genocides.
You know, if I were the grandchild of, say, Malcolm X,
Mm.
I would want everybody to know. I would somehow try to fit that in every conversation, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that would be a little bit too far, but I mean, I would it would be something to be unashamed of.
Yeah.
But what if I were the grandchild of Donald Trump? You
Right.
know, I mean, that's what I mean about having an inheritance of morality.
Mm.
In the moment, you may not see the harm that you are causing. Uh, but Brother Malcolm, he gave something to his grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
when he paid, the ultimate price for being who he was and staying true to his conscience. And I think there's something here that needs to be studied, that needs to be focused on, that for people who are living in the now. People who are living in the now need to realize that they are saving up for their kids,
Yeah.
not to go to college, but to go to life.
Go to life. And then I think like Bernice King, who I just, her daddy's fingers are all over her.
Oh yeah.
And it's beautiful to see the legacy that
Yeah, but
uh,
from the pictures, Donald Trump's daughter's fingers, her father's fingers are all over her too.
and that's
Ivanka Trump.
mhm.
I mean, you look at the pictures and her in weird ways, in obscene ways, her father's fingers are all over her.
And we can't help but leave fingerprints on our kids, and we're gonna like all of our kids are gonna go for therapy. My kids are going for therapy because of me, but may I do more good than harm, and may, when I believe in other focused co-suffering love, when I believe that I am included and I am flawed and fabulous, when I live within love's kind, hopefully my children are gonna have some of that legacy in their own life. I think it's inescapable. The more we live within love's kind, the more the people around us are impacted by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even
You,
you, David, like you're really such an advocate for people. Like pay attention, listen, and also listen for the spirit. Like don't just fill your head full of knowledge, live in your body and let all the parts of who you are as a living breathing being be present with what you're learning, but learn a lot. And then I hear you talk about the people and your friends and your community, and so you're also thinking with people who are thinking.
hmm, yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
we're nourishing one another.
Yeah. Yeah, we're nourishing. And so that lineage in the younger generations as well is, am I offering nourishment?
Yeah.
And so that's very painful irony when we're talking about Gaza.
Yeah, because I mean, we all know that. I was reading Omar Al-Akkad's book a couple of months ago. The title is "One of These Days, Everyone Will Have Been Against This."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I mean that pretty much tells the story right there. The there is a moral accounting that demands that we stay true to what is true and to be ashamed of what is untrue. And there's a lot of shaming. I mean, I think
Yep.
we're living in the midst of more shame right now than we realize. That there's so much shame because of the people who didn't speak up, who didn't take a stand. And it's afflicting us as a world, as a society.
Yep. Yep. And and it's uncomfortable. And I think too, what like when you bring up the children of of evil men, of evil people. I don't want to think about the legacy of
Shame.
monsters. Yeah, it's shame, or we want to believe that these relationships or that person will be stopped.
Yeah.
We want to believe that that person will be stopped and they'll be canceled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's hard to think about, wow, that's a painful weight. All of this violence is leaving a painful legacy on our earth.
Yeah. We're stained. Speaking of kids, it was a decade ago that I was outed in my church denomination as advocating for LGBTQIA folks. Um, and it wasn't the first notice, because I had given notification to our presiding bishop that that was part of my life's campaign. And he replied just by saying, "May God bless us both, David, as we seek God's best for humanity." So, so what happened is that another pastor had lunch with me in 2015. So that's why I say it was a decade ago. It was right after the U.S. Supreme Court approved marriage equality, and he asked me what I thought about it, and I was celebrating it. And then later he said he was going to report me if I didn't recant. I was like, what? Are we really in the 21st century? Anyway, he did, and I got called into the same presiding bishop's office that had already exchanged words with me. Um, but this time it was public. I mean, someone else was in on the conversation. It was on his desk. It became official, and he's in an elected position. So he called me in, and we had a 2.5 hour meeting in which he urged me to withdraw, that kind of thing. And so later, I had a trip. I think I might have been traveling to St. Stephen, but
Mm.
my oldest son was driving me to the airport here in Santa Barbara, and I told him what was going on. And he looked at me, he goes, "Dad," he's driving, and he says, "Dad, I'm so proud of you." And then, like 20 seconds later, he actually pulled the car over and looked at me and said, "Dad, I'm so proud of you." And that made me feel good. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly all the reasons why it made me feel good, because it wasn't a new position for me to take. I think it was the fact that I was uh, being made to pay a price for it or whatever, and I was willing to do that. That kind of brought it into relief. Um, but there aren't many better feelings in the world than being high-fived by your own kid for doing the right thing.
Oh yeah.
No matter who else thinks that it's not the right thing.
Yeah. I love that story, David. And I think it's this is the better work, and this is the lineage in the human collective. And it's, your boy has a right to be proud of his dad, because when push comes to shove, like, are you really going to do the next right thing, Dad? And
Now
this,
there's a thought.
yeah, because you did. You're
Yeah.
like, I love people. I
Yeah.
love people, and I'm just loving people. And your boy says, "Good on you, Dad." Yeah, I hope that
I
I'll
wasn't
have
even
stories
thinking
like that.
about the
Yeah,
ongoing credibility, but yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. So there's like, I mean, this is such a great big conversation, and so we're talking about different ways that we see marginalization occurring, and violence, and silencing to death. And so there's this big affront, and I think why I want people to hear your voice too is you're saying people need to hear this in general, but people who claim to be Christians
Hmm.
need to hear what you're saying as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we stay informed, and how do we act? how do we be Christ? It's like that's the action tendency of Jesus, right? Like if we want to be the most radical protester, that is the Jesus way. And so how
I think there are a number of ways, but one fundamental way is to stop excusing people who are being silent. Um, for Diane and me, it was important. We noticed that here in the States that we didn't watch them all, but we did watch the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and occasionally maybe one of the others. We would record them because they don't start till 11:30 p.m. And then we just stopped watching them completely because nobody ever said anything about genocide. I mean, how can you be a purveyor of laughs about everything else, and your job is to lighten people's lives, but this thing is going on in the background of all of our lives. How can that be? And they were silent. And so we were not interested in their networks. We had long given up on their, cable CNN and MSNBC and all of that, because they fired everybody who spoke up for Palestinians. They, Mark Lamont Hill, Mehdi Hassan, Joy Reid, they just fired them with impunity. So we did not have any energy to watch their shows. But, of course, a month ago, Stephen Colbert, well, he started before then, but more recently, he started speaking up about Gaza. And then a month ago, he hosted a correspondent was live from Gaza, describing what was going on, telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And nobody's saying anything about it now, but his show was canceled just over a week ago.
Yeah.
And it's being attributed to the Trump administration, which I don't doubt is a factor. But I also don't doubt it's a factor that he started speaking up for Gaza.
Yeah.
And I think, and the reason I say that is because there's a reason he didn't speak up and he didn't get cut off, before now. They know that it's, a cost is incurred if they speak up. So, and they've always known that. They've seen what has happened to other people and other networks and other shows. But think about it. Speaking of kids, he has kids, and I think the fact that his show has been canceled, basically, effectively, he's been fired, probably does something wonderful in the souls of his kids, even if there is some economic impact that they will feel the repercussions of. I think it's better. It's healthier for him, healthier for his wife and his kids and future grandkids that this has happened.
I think that's interesting. And it goes back to what you were talking about, souls. Like it's soulful. It's soulful to pay attention, and it's soulful to try to talk things out with other safe people until we can talk about them with people in general, right?
Yeah.
And to be affronted by the people who are silent.
Yeah. No, we need to challenge one another. But like you just said, it really helps to have somebody else to mirror, to bounce things off of each other, to strengthen one another. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, this is a heavy conversation. This is a lot, but it's also really important for people who care to listen to pay attention how you feel when you're listening to this conversation about marginalized people. When David and I are challenging each other to think differently and to notice our matters of differences as well, and have as much safety as we share our own perspective, uh, with as much love as possible.
Yeah.
Because this is the type of conversation that's important. It's healing for us. It's good for our mental health. It's good for our humanity. It's good for, well, the collective humanity.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so let's start winding things down. So, David, I guess any sort of final thoughts or comments of, I guess, when you linger in this space, you kind of talked about this before, and it does feel heavy. What do you suggest? How do you take care of yourself, or how do you encourage the people that you're providing care for to take care of themselves with all the heaviness?
Well, there are three basic principles that I keep reminding people of, and we remind each other of. These three things. Number one is stillness, quietness, mindfulness. That's number one. Number two is experiencing nature, the healing effects. I mean, I find it interesting that I can sit in a room uh, like now, and the curtain's closed here, but when I'm sitting here in my home office, uh, I occasionally find myself drifting. My window is there, and there are plants and trees out there. It's not something I have to tell myself to do, like, oh, you should look at the trees. No, the trees call me.
Mm.
The sky, even if someone is in a space right now where they can't see flowers and things like that, there's some way for them to see the sky, and our attention is drawn there because there's an exchange there. There's a give and take. We nourish each other. So, number one is stillness, quietness, mindfulness. Number two is experiencing nature, and then number three is being in face-to-face community with people of like minds,
Mm.
compassionate hearts. And if those three things, I think, are a part of all of our lives, we're going to be okay.
I think that's beautiful. And it's really interesting because in one of the types of schools of thought of psychology with mindfulness practicing, we often use metaphors of nature. And so it's sometimes nature is just, I think God has a good sense of humor, but we're drawn to look at the sky and we watch the clouds move, trusting that the next cloud will come. And that's so much with our emotional health when things are heavy, when we're trying to figure out how to unhook ourselves from our own feelings so that we can move within love's kind, so that we can speak truth in a better way. So we see the clouds, or we watch the waves lap over the
Hmm.
shore, and then the next wave comes. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's refreshing. I mean, not every pastor is going to say something so whimsical and true. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, David Moore. I'll put some of David's ways that you can find out how to hear more from David down below, and the name of his church organization down in California, in case that works for anybody. And
Yeah, we're
um
on Zoom every week.
yes, perfect. And I mean, like, I'm so thankful that you took this call with me, and I am so thankful for what I've learned from you already and what I hope to continue to learn. And it's just like, um I'm so blessed to hear you talk about finding better truth.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Tara. Thank you. I don't know when I'll see you again, but
Yeah.
hopefully someday.
Yeah. And so much peace to you. And hopefully, yeah, hopefully we'll see each other. Who knows, right? Who knows when we're going to see any of the people that we love
Yeah.
face to face with all of the kookiness out there. But if you do run into David Moore, he does give a pretty good hug, I will say. So I think I do okay with hugs too. So if you run into me, hugging is also something that's lovely. So
Yay.
all right, take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye now.